Hey everyone, welcome back to MangaMinute. I'm thrilled to share my latest recap video with you. If you missed the previous one, no worries, just take a quick peek in the description below for the link. Now, let's dive right in and enjoy.
Hajinyu inquired of his son, Eunho, about the most important thing to a man. Without hesitation, Eunho replied that it was money. Hajinyu, impressed by his son's insight, acknowledged this answer with pride. He then posed another question asking what the next most important thing was. Eunho, thinking quickly, responded that it was the power to protect the money. Hajinyu was taken aback but agreed with the answer, adding a more nuanced perspective. He explained that the true essence lay in the power to protect one's body. According to Hajinyu, even if one loses everything, good health ensures the possibility of starting anew. This revelation left Eunho shocked, prompting him to inquire about learning martial arts. Hajinyu, sensing his son's surprise, questioned if this was something Eunho desired. Internally, Eunho mused about the irony of the situation. As a powerful fox yokai and king of the yokai realm, he found it amusing that he was now in a position to learn the martial arts he once thought inferior. Despite his initial thoughts, he decided it might be an enjoyable pursuit, and quickly expressed his interest in learning martial arts to his father. Pleased with Eunho's decision, Hajinyu declared that they would first create his dantian. Eunho, unfamiliar with the term, pondered the concept of the dantian, setting the stage for his new journey into martial arts. Standing in the training ground, Hajinyu began to explain the fundamentals of martial arts to Eunho. He described how martial arts relied on harnessing qi, the vital energy within the body, which is condensed in a specific place called the dantian. For one to fully understand, learn, and practice martial arts, it was essential to create this dantian. Eunho, listening intently, couldn't help but draw a comparison to his own experience with a fox bead. Curious, he wondered if he could remove the dantian from his body at will. However, Mr. Jang clarified that once the dantian was settled within the body, it could never be separated. This explanation led Eunho to realize that the dantian was somewhat different from a fox bead. Despite the differences, he was eager to start his training. Hajinyu, sensing his son's readiness, called upon Mr. Jang to begin the process. Mr. Jang then instructed Eunho to take a lotus position. Under Hajinyu's guidance, Eunho sat in a lotus position, eyes closed, following his father's instructions. Hajinyu began by piercing through Eunho's blocked meridians, instructing him to take a deep breath. Suddenly, Eunho fainted and started vomiting blood, causing Hajinyu to panic. He desperately called for Eunho to wake up and frantically asked Mr. Jang about the physician's arrival. Mr. Jang, attempting to calm him, assured that the physician would arrive soon. When the physician finally arrived, Hajinyu quickly explained Eunho's condition. His body had become hot like a fireball, he vomited blood, and then lost consciousness. Hajinyu was certain they had made no mistake, but he couldn't understand what had gone wrong. The physician, after examining Eunho, stated that there was no injury. Hajinyu was taken aback and incredulous when the physician added that Eunho was actually in a very good condition. The physician elaborated, explaining that it was a side effect seen when a large amount of internal qi gathered in the dantian at once. Hajinyu was bewildered, as Eunho had never learned any techniques to cultivate his inner qi and lacked a dantian. The physician clarified that cultivation techniques could be performed even without a dantian, causing the energy to accumulate in the body's veins instead. Remarkably, the amount of internal qi within Eunho was enormous. The physician noted that Eunho's meridians, previously blocked, had opened seamlessly, indicating a high level of harmonization between his yin and yang meridians. Hajinyu was astonished by this revelation and wondered how much internal qi Eunho truly possessed. At the physician's suggestion, he placed his hands on Eunho's dantian to check for himself. To his utter shock, Hajinyu realized that Eunho's inner qi had transcended the peak state, with a quantity equivalent to 120 years worth of qi, far surpassing the amount Hajinyu had accumulated over 40 years of cultivation. Hajinyu was left in disbelief, unable to fathom how Eunho, who had never learned internal qi cultivation techniques and had spent a year confined to a sickbed, could possess such immense internal qi. Suddenly, an elderly man approached and chimed in. It seems like his soul has left his body and returned after encountering some miraculous hermit soul. Your son has grown a lot since the last time I saw him. His words hung in the air, and everyone around turned their attention to the old man. His presence exuded a sense of wisdom and authority that demanded respect. Eunho opened his eyes in shock, bewildered by the unfamiliar scenery around him. He recalled that he had been in the middle of creating his dantian in the main courtyard training hall. As he pondered this, a sudden voice startled him, interrupting his thoughts. Turning towards the direction of the voice, Eunho saw an elderly man seated on a boulder. He wondered who this old man was, but before he could speak, the old man retorted with annoyance, chastising Eunho for not showing respect to his master. Eunho, taken aback, muttered to himself about the old man's frail appearance and questioned if someone like him could truly teach martial arts. His thoughts were interrupted as he exclaimed, questioning the old man's claim of being his master and demanding to know where he was. The old man, undeterred by Eunho's attitude, scolded him again. Eunho, enraged, thought the old man might be crazy. He quickly retorted, asserting that he was the one who decided who would be his master and threatened the old man with an authoritative tone. Before Eunho could finish his words, the old man, who had been seated on the boulder the entire time, moved with incredible speed. With a simple gesture, he sent Eunho flying, demonstrating a level of martial prowess that left Eunho stunned and silenced. Eunho, who had fainted from the old man's attack, jolted awake as he slowly regained consciousness. The old man, seated in front of him, remarked that Eunho's body was weaker than he had expected. This provoked Eunho, who retorted angrily. The old man, maintaining a calm demeanor, noted that Eunho lacked manners as well. Infuriated, Eunho launched himself at the old man, attacking with all his might. However, the old man effortlessly blocked every strike, remaining unmoved from his seated position. After several failed attempts, Eunho muttered in frustration about how many times he had seen the sky that day. With a serene demeanor, the old man proposed a bet. If Eunho could grab his collar or even a strand of his cloth, he would not force him to become his disciple. But if Eunho failed, he would have to accept the old man as his master without hesitation. Eunho initially dismissed the bet as childish and unnecessary, but the old man's taunts goaded him into action. Determined to prove himself, Eunho muttered that he had become the king of the yokai world without a teacher and launched another attack. The old man leaped into the air, effortlessly avoiding the assault. He marveled at the whirlwind created by Eunho's inexperienced hand. Eunho, quick on his feet, continued his relentless assault, determined to seize the old man. However, the old man deftly avoided every attack, mocking Eunho by comparing his dry, rough skin to that of a rock. Desperate, Eunho threw a rock as a distraction and launched himself for a final attack. The old man, seeing Eunho's tactic, was impressed by his ingenuity. He moved swiftly, dodging all of Eunho's strikes with ease, still in awe of the young Eunho's potential. Meanwhile, Eunho refused to surrender, relentlessly launching attacks with all his might. After a series of fierce attempts, he finally managed to grab the old man by his cloth, marking his victory in the bet. The old man, taken aback and in disbelief, exclaimed with a laugh, "Ahaha! You're quite an interesting boy." Hajinyu, visibly concerned, exclaimed that the old master wanted to test if Eunho had any potential as a martial artist. Despite Eunho knowing nothing about martial arts, the old master replied with a hint of amusement, explaining that had he not left, he would have found himself in an amusing situation. Confused, Hajinyu pressed for clarity. The old master elaborated that despite Eunho's clumsiness and roughness, he was born with a natural martial temperament. He compared Eunho to his younger brother, who was renowned for his warrior's temperament, but even he had not shown such promise at Eunho's current stage. Hajinyu was taken aback, recognizing the old master's younger brother as Namgung Jin, the former head of the Namgung family and leader of the Murim Alliance. Namgung Jin had proudly earned a place among the 24 martial arts masters, a title for the strongest in Murim, and was known as the Sword King. Struggling to grasp the significance, Hajinyu asked if it was truly possible that Eunho possessed such potential. The old master assured Hajinyu that he spoke with sincerity. He expressed a personal desire to train Eunho into an outstanding warrior and present him to the world, driven by what could be seen as his own feudal greed. Hajinyu, convinced by the old master's sincerity and reputation, agreed, stating that if the master taught Eunho directly, he had no reason to object. However, the old master admitted with a hint of regret that he had unfortunately lost the bet, which meant he couldn't impose himself as Eunho's teacher. Offering hospitality, Hajinyu urged the old master to rest in the annex and reconsider staying. However, the old master, resolute in his decision to leave early, emphasized the importance of keeping one's promises. Hajinyu persisted, appealing to the old master as someone he held in high regard. But as they reached the gate of the house, they were surprised to see Eunho standing outside. Hajinyu exclaimed in disbelief at Eunho's presence. Eunho, kneeling before them, expressed his earnest desire to learn from the old master, seeking guidance on why his attacks had failed and pleading to be taught everything. The old master, however, dismissed Eunho's request without hesitation. Mr. Jang confirmed Eunho's inquiry about Namgung, prompting Eunho to ask what kind of person he was. Mr. Jang explained that Namgung was a remarkable martial artist, known for his extensive knowledge. Although he didn't stand out among other prominent martial artists due to his choice to leave the Namgung family and wander, he was widely respected within the martial arts community. He had achieved a level of proficiency that placed him among the 24 martial masters, alongside his younger brother, Namgung Jin, the former leader of the Martial Arts Alliance. Eunho concluded that Namgung could indeed be a good teacher and recognized the honor in having such a master. Mr. Jang reinforced this sentiment, stating how prestigious it was to have Namgung as a mentor. However, Eunho's thoughts were conflicted. He reflected on the honor of being a disciple, feeling it was ironic given that he had faced the Tathagata with pride and without courtesy. The idea of bowing to the old man seemed like it would make him a laughingstock among the yokai if word got out. Still, deep down, he knew his priority was to become stronger than he was. And so, Eunho officially became a disciple of Namgung, training diligently under his guidance. As time passed, 2 years flew by, filled with rigorous training and growth. Eunho sparred with his master, both wielding wooden swords. For a time, they exchanged blows evenly, but that balance was soon disrupted as Eunho summoned all his might and pushed Namgung back. Feeling the pressure, Namgung scolded Eunho, warning him not to overdo it. Eunho quickly retorted, reminding his master that he was the one who had said he would go all out first. Namgung, visibly frustrated, held up his swollen hand, emphasizing the toll the sparring had taken. He scolded Eunho again, exclaiming about the defensive chi shield and lamenting his own condition, calling Eunho a rotten punk for his relentless spirit. Seated together in front of a crackling bonfire, Namgung sighed, admitting that he could no longer keep up with Eunho in their sparring sessions. Eunho, ever polite, attributed it to his master getting older. This prompted a sharp retort from Namgung, who questioned how Eunho could maintain such a consistently cheeky attitude. Frustrated, Namgung muttered that his intention to give Eunho had vanished. When Eunho asked for clarification, Namgung quickly dismissed him, insisting that Eunho take the sword he had just handed over. With a dismissive wave, Namgung tossed a sword toward Eunho, grumbling that it had been constantly bumping into his feet without ever finding its true owner. Eunho, adopting a sarcastic tone, questioned if he could return it if he didn't end up using it. Annoyed, Namgung shot back, suggesting that Eunho could simply throw it away if he didn't want it. Eunho withdrew the sword from its sheath, his movements fluid and precise, a testament to years of dedicated training under Namgung. The blade shimmered in the sunlight as he executed intricate martial techniques with effortless grace. Namgung, his master, watched with a mixture of pride and contemplation. Observing Eunho's skill, Namgung mused to himself about the young disciple's potential. When he reaches his peak, he will harness even stronger and more concentrated chi within the sword, surpassing mere swordsmanship to achieve sword strength. It took me a lifetime to master it, but for him it seems to come so quickly. After testing the sword, Eunho remarked casually, "It's a good sword, fortunately." Namgung Chong, ever the teacher, offered advice tinged with concern. "Eunho, you have mastered our clan's supreme sword technique, Boundless Sky Sword technique. You are already strong enough to rival the elders of the largest factions." Eunho's response was measured. "I understand." Sensing Eunho's dissatisfaction, Namgung Chong probed gently, "You don't seem very happy. For a genius like you, unparalleled in all ages." Eunho interrupted firmly, "I don't wish to rely on techniques anymore, master. I want to surpass such limitations." Namgung Chong's expression softened, realizing the depth of Eunho's resolve. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, curious yet apprehensive about Eunho's unconventional path forward. Eunho took a deep breath, his expression serious as he reflected on his journey. He began to articulate his thoughts about Namgung's swordsmanship. While he acknowledged its unparalleled strength, he admitted that, despite its excellence, it began to feel like a constraint on his true potential. The very techniques that elevated him were now holding him back from fully unleashing his power. Namgung Chong, taken aback by Eunho's revelation, felt a surge of indignation. "Restraining, you say? You punk. What do you mean by that?" Instead of answering, Eunho simply pointed his sword at a large tree nearby. In a fluid motion, he unleashed his power, shattering the tree into splinters, leaving no trace behind. Namgung Chong's eyes widened in disbelief as he witnessed this display. "What is this? Zenith? Sword strength? This transcends everything I thought I knew. It embodies both emptiness and the essence of the arts themselves." His mind raced, grappling with the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. Namgung Chong stammered, still processing the scene before him. Eunho met his gaze with quiet determination. "I'm just getting started." Namgung Chong couldn't contain his awe. "I knew you would surpass me, but I never imagined it would be to this extent." Eunho replied with a teasing tone. "Well, now you know." Annoyed yet impressed, Namgung Chong shook his head. "You wicked punk. If this is just the beginning, it means your strength is still incomplete. I want to see how far you can go." With renewed purpose, he declared, "Let me help you. With my vast knowledge from years of wandering and studying martial arts, there must be something I can offer." Eunho shot back playfully, "You'd be humiliated if you can't help." Namgung Chong threw his hands up in exasperation. "You rotten bastard." But beneath his annoyance, there was a spark of excitement for the journey that lay ahead. As they made their way along the rugged mountain path, Namgung Chong exclaimed, "Master Dharma invented martial arts, and together with Zen Master Jang Sambong and the emergence of the early heavenly demon, martial arts reached perfection." Eunho listened intently, recalling his own thoughts. Dharma? That foolish monk? And Jang Sambong? That bastard. He was the one who fought alongside that monk and babbled about yin and yang. In that moment, a memory from his previous life surfaced, stirring a pang of nostalgia. "I almost forgot about her. I wonder if she's doing well with her big brother in the afterlife." Namgung Chong continued, his tone serious. "If you had been there during that era, you would have clashed with those figures to become the strongest in history." Eunho chuckled softly, shaking his head. "The strongest in history? Why are you laughing?" Namgung Chong scolded, though his annoyance quickly turned to acceptance. "No, it's nothing. I suppose being the strongest in history doesn't seem amusing to you, you rotten punk." Eunho's expression shifted as he contemplated his journey. "At first, I wielded the sword as a means to gain strength, but now it has become my true purpose." Namgung Chong took a deep breath, readying his battle stance with a fierce determination. He declared the stakes of their training, warning Eunho that failing to block his attack could lead to dire consequences. With a swift motion, he dashed forward, launching a powerful strike while lamenting the potential stigma of being a teacher who harmed his own disciple. Eunho stood firm, his focus unwavering as he prepared to counter the oncoming assault. As Namgung Chong closed the distance, he sheathed his sword, channeling all his energy into a single, precise movement. In an instant, he effortlessly blocked his master's strike, shattering Namgung Chong's sword into fragments. Awestruck by the display, Namgung Chong couldn't help but marvel at the union of body and sword that Eunho had achieved. The concept of sword strength, which he had dedicated his life to understanding, suddenly seemed insignificant in comparison. With curiosity bubbling within him, he wondered how many times Eunho had swung his sword in that brief moment. Eunho's response, delivered with quiet confidence, revealed the incredible mastery he had attained. He had swung his sword 1,000 times in an instant. Realizing the magnitude of Eunho's progress, Namgung Chong felt a wave of pride and astonishment. It was clear that Eunho had completed his transformation into a true master. Yet, despite this incredible accomplishment, Eunho humbly noted that his sword still bore no name. Namgung Chong, inspired by the sheer power emanating from the blade, proclaimed that it was a weapon of unparalleled arrogance, one that could even make the heavens tremble in fear. He dubbed it the heaven-shattering sword, a title that resonated with the magnitude of its potential. As Eunho absorbed this, he reflected on the weight of the name. It had been 5 years since he first met his master and grasped the sword, culminating in the creation of the strongest sword in history. Namgung Chong, sensing the grandeur of the title, acknowledged it might sound overly ambitious, but it was simply a reflection of what he felt in that moment. Eunho approached his father with a respectful greeting. "Father, it's Eunho." Hajinyu looked up, a hint of reproach in his voice. "So, you've been up late again." Eunho nodded, explaining, "I was reviewing what I learned from my teacher until late last night." Hajinyu continued, "Regardless, I'm glad you're here. You need to go to school and pick up Somi." Eunho was taken aback. "Isn't that Mr. Jang's responsibility?" Hajinyu clarified. "The Chamberlain has asked you to take his place for a few days since his mother's condition has worsened." Reluctantly, Eunho responded, "In that case, could you send some martial artists with a servant? I still need to eat and practice." Hajinyu, firm in his authority, replied, "You're the strongest and most capable person in Chanhajang. You will go when I say you need to go." As Eunho walked toward the school to pick up his sister, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Indeed, I've been so obsessed with training that I've barely seen Somi. Wait, since when did I start obeying my father's orders and caring about Somi? It feels like I've turned into the real Ha Eunho. I'm Eunho. I'm not just some dead Ha Eunho." Eunho approached the academy where his sister Somi attended. His attention was drawn to the row of luxurious carriages parked outside. These ostentatious displays of wealth amused and irritated him simultaneously. He couldn't help but wonder if Mr. Jang had also used such lavish means to transport Somi. The thought made him feel embarrassed for reasons he couldn't quite articulate. Unbeknownst to Eunho, his scrutiny had not gone unnoticed. A man, evidently the owner of one of the carriages, took offense to Eunho's critical gaze. He confronted Eunho sharply, demanding to know why he was staring. Maintaining his composure, Eunho simply smirked in response, not dignifying the man's outburst with a verbal reply. Feeling mocked by Eunho's smirk, the man's anger flared. He demanded to know if Eunho was looking for trouble, and who he thought the carriage belonged to. With a flourish, he prepared to unsheath his sword, ready to escalate the confrontation. Eunho remained composed, his expression turning into a subtle smirk as he pulled out a plaque from his robes. With a deliberate gesture, he displayed the plaque to the man. The man's eyes widened in disbelief as he recognized the golden plaque engraved with the prestigious Heaven Cox on a cloud pattern. It was a symbol associated with one of the most illustrious families in the capital, the Chanhajang. Realizing his mistake, the man's demeanor shifted from aggression to astonishment. Eunho seized the moment, his voice laced with mockingly. He reminded the man of the owner of the carriage, subtly asserting his own status without saying a word. As Eunho waited in front of the academy, Somi spotted her brother and shouted with joy, "Brother, did you come to pick me up?" She rushed toward him, wrapping her arms around him in an enthusiastic embrace. Eunho felt a rush of embarrassment. "You're 16 now. When are you going to stop running like that when you see me?" Somi responded playfully, "It's because I like my brother. Who says I have to stop?" Eunho shook his head, trying to explain himself. "I'm not saying this because anyone said it." As he looked at Somi's face, he couldn't help but think how much she resembled their late mother. Despite the passage of time, she seemed to grow prettier with each day, especially as she shed some weight. With enthusiasm shining in her eyes, Somi proposed, "On our way back, let's stop by the market and eat some snacks." A man exclaimed, "So Gukju, do you know who that man is?" "His friend, So Gukju," replied confidently, "He's the young lord of Chanhajang. Can't you tell just by looking at him?" Eunho and Somi entered the house, calling out, "I'm home, father. We're back from the academy." Their father looked up, his expression heavy with grief. "Eunho, Somi, 2 days ago, in the early morning." Inside the carriage, Eunho reflected on his memories with his master, recalling a moment when he expressed his desire to lead a normal life. Namgung Chong had chuckled softly, curious about the path Eunho would choose. Knowing his time was running short, Eunho had responded with a hint of mockery, acknowledging the reality of their situation. His master, not one to let it slide, had scolded him playfully, reminding him to avoid unnecessary violence. He urged Eunho to tread carefully, aware that life rarely unfolded as one hoped. Despite their time together feeling fleeting, Namgung Chong hoped no blood or darkness would tarnish Eunho's legacy. As the carriage rocked gently, Eunho murmured to himself about the nature of life and death. He believed that when humans die, they enter the underworld not as an end, but as a true beginning. "Still, I'll take one last look, old man," he whispered, a silent promise to honor his master's memory. As the incoming carriages approached, someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Oh, it's the Chonghajang's Heavenly Guard. The best of the best, the protectors of Chonghajin." Another voice chimed in, adding, "Each one boasts of first-class or higher quality strength." Mr. Jang announced the arrival of the guests to the guards. Jang Chilhuai, the Heavenly Guard, Ha Jinyu, the Heavenly Leader, and his children have arrived. The Namgung Patriarch greeted them with enthusiasm. "Such a busy man in his field has come this far. It's an honor." Ha Jinyu responded humbly, "Namgung clan leader." As the Namgung Patriarch personally greeted them, Eunho couldn't help but reflect on the significance of such a renowned family. He had heard that in the eyes of the merchant district, they were often dismissed as merely a family of merchants. Yet here was the family head, coming forward to greet his father first. Eunho's thoughts drifted back to a past incident at the academy, where a certain individual had shown fear of his father's financial influence. Ha Jinyu expressed his condolences, acknowledging the recent loss of his master and the need to set aside everything for the moment. The Namgung Patriarch responded with warmth, assuring Ha Jinyu that even if no one else understood, his uncle had been looking forward to this visit. Introducing his children, Ha Jinyu pointed out, "This is my son, Eunho, and my daughter, Somi." Somi bowed respectfully, her demeanor humble as she greeted the Patriarch with admiration. The Patriarch smiled, recalling fondly how his uncle had often spoken of Somi, praising her intelligence, integrity, and beauty. Then, turning his attention to Eunho, he acknowledged the young man's connection to the family, knowing that his uncle had taught him martial arts. Eunho, maintaining his modesty, downplayed his training, stating he had only learned a little of the Namgung martial arts. However, the guards, overhearing this exchange, couldn't contain their disbelief. They muttered among themselves, questioning how an outsider could attain such knowledge. The Patriarch, noticing the disrespect from the guards, quickly scolded them, asserting the importance of honoring their guests in that moment. The Namgung Patriarch quickly offered his apologies, acknowledging the guards' ignorance due to their lack of education. He asked for understanding from the esteemed guests. Ha Jinyu, ever humble, responded by clarifying that he had personally requested permission for Eunho to learn, motivated solely by concern for his sick son. He felt it was he who needed the Patriarch's understanding in this situation. As they made their way into the residence, the Namgung Patriarch insisted on personally attending to their needs, expressing gratitude for their long journey. His hospitality was a testament to the deep respect he held for Ha Jinyu and his family. Meanwhile, not far from the Namgung residence, a figure lingered in the shadows, sniffing the air with keen interest. As he gazed intently at the majestic building, a revelation washed over him. There was a distinct and unmistakable scent wafting through the surroundings, an unmistakable smell of yokai. His eyes narrowed as he processed the implications, aware that something significant was unfolding just beyond the walls of the majestic building.